Good morning. I've been very sneezy. So if I sneeze approximately 800 times during this video, or if I have to wipe my nose a bunch of times, I apologize. I will try to keep the yuck sounds as minimal as possible. As minimal as possible. Chapter 26, which, by the way, I'm going to throw in a link to the description that will work because it's in-house. So if you're like tuning in right now and you're like, oh, chapter 26, I'll throw in a link to chapter 1 so that if you're like, I don't want you to get caught at the end of the story because then, like spoiler alert, Okay. However, if you've already been here for the first 25 chapters, then buckle up, sit down, let's do this. Okay. Chapter 26, Monday, December 31st. December 31/08. It's nearly 6 a.m. I'm at the cove, freezing my butt off. I was going to wait in the car, but Henry said 6 sharp. I didn't think being late for my first day of MER training would be getting a good start. Plus, I'm so far behind. I can't afford to waste a minute. Nikki and Emma should be here soon. I almost forgot. It's New Year's Eve today. Tomorrow is a brand new year. As far as the rest of the world knows, it's just another New Year's. Unfortunately, I'm no longer a part of the rest of the world. I belong to a new world, a world where New Year's Day could mean destruction and death. Nellie checked her watch. It was 5 till. She stood and paced, occasionally taking small jumps, trying to warm up her muscles. Mostly she kept wondering about what Henry would teach her. Hopefully, something awesome. Though she'd settle for something that could keep her alive. That kept her alive. Wow, she said, chuckling to herself. A few weeks ago, she would not have been hoping to learn awesome mermaid powers from her deadbeat uncle. Mom always said, time changes everything. Nellie stretched her arms. Is this going to be very physical? Nellie spun around to see Emma trudging down towards her, Nikki close behind. Good morning, sunshine, Nellie called brightly. Can it? Emma said. You struck me as a morning person, Nellie teased, grinning. Nikki said, apparently we caught her on an off day. Ignoring them both, Emma grumbled some more, but this time her complaints were incoherent. Are we ready to get started? The voice startled the 3 girls, who looked around trying to find its source. Over here, the voice said again. They turned to see Henry waist deep in the ocean. I hope you're all wearing your swimsuits like I told you. We're starting in the water. He slipped beneath the small waves. I'm actually really excited, Nellie confessed, as she took off her t-shirt, revealing her black bikini top. I'm actually really cold, Emma griped, struggling with her sweatpants. Boo-hoo, Nikki said. Although it was 6 in the morning and still pretty cold, she had only been wearing a sundress and a zip-up jacket, both already discarded. Nikki and Nellie ran into the water, diving head first. Pouting and grumbling, Emma trudged down to the water, dragging her feet, leaving long lines in the sand behind her. When Emma finally got into the cold water, Nikki and Nellie were already 2 bobbing heads waiting for her to join them. Nellie had timed her change perfectly and had been able to save her bikini bottoms from getting torn to shreds. She had wrapped them around her wrist, as was her new habit. How exactly is having a freezing, grouchy psychic medium supposed to help you train? Nikki asked Nellie. Nellie laughed and watched Emma mentally debate over getting under the water slowly or all at once. She was quite familiar with this look. Just jump in, Nellie called to Emma. It'll be over faster. She grinned and took a mouthful of salt water, spitting it out in a long stream. It wasn't quite as salty as she remembered from her pre-mermaid days. Nellie leaned over to Nikki to answer her question. No idea. I've been trying to figure out what I'm going to learn today. But the truth is I don't know anything about being a mermaid except how to swim. And I don't know anything about the power, so I have no idea what to expect. You can expect chatting up here is not on the training schedule, Henry said from behind them. Stop doing that! Nikki's shoulders shot up to her ears as her whole body tensed up. He ignored her and said, come on. He dived back down. Nikki noticed his tail was blue, cerulean blue. It was her favorite crayon. Are you staring at his butt? Nellie said suddenly. What? Nikki scoffed, her eyes bulging. No, gross. Could you remind him we can't breathe down there like you guys can? Sure. Nellie said, wagging her brows at Nikki. Nellie dived down. Had she been staring? No, definitely not. Nikki felt Nikki felt the blush rush to her face. She had cleared her throat, hoping to clear her mind by distracting herself. Sometime today would be nice, Em. I'm coming, Emma whined. Nikki watched her friend take a deep breath and dive in. Emma came up a second later. It's freezing! Well, it's not like it's going to get any colder, Nikki said. Shut up, Emma snapped as she doggy paddled over. Where do they go? I told Nellie to remind her uncle we're not all water breathers, Nikki said. Are you always this grumpy in the morning? Emma growled. Forget I asked, Nikki said, suppressing a laugh. Nellie popped up next to them. He says take a deep breath and come on down. Nikki inhaled, expanding her diaphragm as much as she could, and followed Nellie. The two girls were soon joined by Emma, who managed to look even grumpier, holding her breath, puffing her cheeks and squinting her eyes. Henry swam over to Emma first, touching the sides of her neck. He followed this by quickly putting his hands on her sides just before her ribs ended. Holy carp, Emma said. She felt the cool... Oh my gosh. Oh, guys, I'm struggling. Holy carp, Emma said. She felt the cool water rush through her. She touched her neck and felt slits. You gave me gills. Visibly relaxing, she added, oh, and I'm warmer now. Side effect, Henry said, shrugging and swimming over to Nikki. Can you teach me how to do that? Nellie asked. Henry repeated the process he had done with Emma. When he was sure they were both breathing properly, he finally answered Nellie. If we decide to make this arrangement permanent, I can try. It takes years of study, more years of practice, and a few willing friends. So it's not what I'm learning today? Nellie asked. You can't learn that in a day, Henry said, scoffing. I think I like breathing underwater. Nikki brushed her finger on her gills. They were cool to the touch and flapped on their own. She tried to concentrate, but she couldn't consciously make them move. How did you do this? Nikki said, looking at Henry. It's less about water and more about sharing of magic. It's a lot easier to give you guys gills than it is to give a human gills. You're already magical. I've essentially translated your magic, Henry explained. How long does it last? Emma asked. A couple of hours with a human, but you guys will have about twice that. So roughly 4 hours, Nikki said. What? Nellie said. A couple is usually 2. A couple of shoes, a couple of people, so twice a couple is 4, Nikki explained. After everyone stared at her for a second, she said, never mind, and insisted Henry began teaching Nellie whatever it was he was going to teach her. A playfulness danced in Henry's eyes as he started the lesson. 31 December 2008. We're taking a break from the water. Thank goodness. Nikki and Nellie were teasing me about being grumpy. Between my visit from the beyond and my dreams, I had an awful night. I didn't want to scare them, but it felt like before Nikki helped me when I was having a million visions all at once. It's more of the same. As for the training, it's really cool, and Nellie is picking it up fast. Anyway, Henry was telling Nellie she had to feel the water. I think her time as a surfer has helped her connect a lot easier than any of us anticipated. Nikki and I just floated there for the first part and chatted. By the way, speaking underwater is wild. I thought we'd sound weird, but we sound completely normal. I think it's a magic thing. Still feels weird, though. Too wet for my taste. Anyway, Henry said we land mammals are in charge of teaching Nellie meditation basics. How to clear her mind and stuff. In her book, A Guide to Mermaids, Lois Van Datters says mermaids meditate by learning to feel and move with ocean currents. Emma tried to stretch her back. It shouldn't have been, but it was sore. When she had left, Henry was saying something about teaching Nellie how to stop moving water. He had finished his lesson on starting a wave in still water. Are you coming back, Nellie? Nikki called. Her head was a bobbing dot among the waves. Give me a minute to breathe, Emma called back. The wind suddenly blew hard and loud. All Emma caught of Nikki's next comment was something about gills. Emma ignored her. Breathing underwater wasn't awful, but it didn't feel natural either. As she watched Nikki dip back underwater, Emma now felt she better understood Nellie's hesitation and initial resistance to being a mermaid. She sighed. I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, she chanted to herself as she breathed deep and walked down to the beach, wanting to be close in case she was needed. Though she hadn't been needed the entire time she had been in the water, why could they possibly need her now? Almost as soon as the thought traipsed its way across Emma's mind, Nellie's head popped out of the water only a few feet in front of Emma. We could use you down here, Nellie said. For what? What for? Emma asked. Henry's going to make the water still, Nellie said, so I need you guys to make small waves for me to stop and control. Okay. Emma followed Nellie back into the deeper water. When the two girls got back, they found Henry quietly talking with Nikki, his hands on her side. Nikki saw her friends and practically pushed Henry away from her. Just reapplying the gill thing, Nikki said, turning bright red. Right, Nellie said, looking at Emma. Do you need your gills reapplied? Nikki asked Emma. Maybe later, Emma said, smiling. She had reapplied an hour ago. Now, Henry said, drawing the girl's focus, I'm going to need silence. I'm not calming the whole ocean, but it still takes concentration to calm a cove of water. The girls nodded. After I calm the water, I'll nod to you, Nikki, Henry said. Okay, Nikki said aloud, though internally her brain yelled madly that she was being insane and her body needed to get things under control. She took a deep breath, doing everything in her considerable power to stop blushing. There was definitely some magic involved. Then I want you to do what we talked about. Emma, your job is to lend your strength to Nikki. Wouldn't it be easier to stop the small waves that naturally occur in the cove anyway? Nellie asked. Easier is not the goal, Henry said, shaking his arms. If we had more time, I'd work you up gradually, but since we don't, you get to start with the hard stuff. Now, get ready. He took several deep breaths, rolling her shoulders and nodding. Nellie braced herself. Emma took Nikki's hand, and they waited as Henry closed his eyes and concentrated. He floated, standing straight. He was almost completely still, save the slightest movements of his blue tail. He slowly raised his arms until they were straight out, his body forming a cross. The girls were surprised by how calm the water felt. Henry nodded. Nikki lifted her right hand slowly, holding the fingers of Emma's right hand with her left. Henry had told Nikki, while Nellie had been retrieving Emma, to concentrate on energy. He had told her to forget about the water, to feel it in her breath. Oh, just kidding, I jumped a line. He told her to forget about the water and focus instead on a small ball of energy moving through the water, to feel it in her breath. Nikki's only elemental magic training was with fire, and she had told this to Henry, but he had insisted it wouldn't be a problem. Energy was energy. Nikki cleared these thoughts from her mind and focused. Energy. Energy. She needed to visualize it more. She needed to picture every detail. What color would energy be? Yellow, she decided. She imagined a small yellow ball. As she pictured the energy, she realized it was less of a ball and more of a pinhead. The training wasn't supposed to be easy. Nikki concentrated, squeezing Emma's hand and using the power that flowed through the both of them. She helped the ball grow. It was the size of a lemon drop, now a roll of packing tape. She concentrated, and the energy grew to the size of a soccer ball. Fighting to maintain its size, Nikki realized why she needed Emma's help with this ball of energy. She squeezed Emma's hand. As Nikki floated with her outstretched hand, like she was holding an invisible ball, Nellie watched and waited for the waves to start. At first, they were no more than ripples. With a deep breath, she was able to calm the ripples easily. Then the ripples grew. Nellie held a hand out in front of her to stop the small waves. This took more energy, but she was still mostly successful. While she was unable to stop the waves completely, she was able to push them back down to ripples. Nellie released her hold on the waves, allowing Nikki's power to make the waves even bigger. Nellie felt the water around her becoming shallow. Her tail brushed the sand. She could feel the wind kissing the top of her head. The next wave that hit her was massive. Nellie put up both hands and concentrated on the little training she had received. She was able to stop the wave for a few moments, but the effort was draining her strength quickly. Nellie started to speak. I can't. However, speaking broke her concentration. The wave engulfed her, sending her tossing and rolling across the sandy bottom of the ocean. Stop, Henry said, not opening his eyes. Nikki didn't hear him, but Emma did. She broke the hold Nikki had on her hand. The sudden loss of power was enough to catch Nikki's attention. We're stopping, Emma explained. Oh, Nikki relaxed. You're a massively powerful witch, Henry said, opening his eyes to look at Nikki. Thanks, Nikki said. I'm also massively exhausted, she mumbled as she floated, letting the water do the work. Shouldn't someone find Nellie? Emma said, looking around for her friend. Here, came a muffled voice. Marco. Emma glanced around quickly. The wave had churned everything up. There were piles of sand and seaweed everywhere. Polo, the voice said again. Emma was able to figure out the direction and continued to playing Marco Polo until she found one particularly large pile of sand. She saw a black fin poking out from the base of the pile. Marco, she asked, pulling on the fin a little. Get me out of here already, Nellie shouted. Okay, Emma said, giggling. She started digging from the top, uncovering Nellie's head and then shoulders. Can you take it from there? No, Nellie said, spitting out sand as she squirmed, struggling to free herself. As Emma dug, freeing Nellie's torso, she saw seaweed wrapped around Nellie's arms, pinning them to her side. Could I get a little help? Emma called. Cotton seaweed? Henry said, swimming over to help. Rookie mistake. He shook his head and put his hand on the seaweed. The slimy green strands immediately around his hand dried and crumbled away. I can manage from here, Nellie said. Thanks, Emma. When Nellie had finally wiggled her way free from the mess of sand and seaweed, she collapsed on the ocean floor. She said, I know it wasn't supposed to be easy, but was it supposed to be that hard? I didn't know the witch was so powerful, Henry said, shrugging. Now we know. Let's do it again. December 31st, 2008. I wish I could write down everything I saw and did today. I can't, but I wish I could, just so I would be sure never to forget it. Unfortunately, saying mermaid magic is freaking cool and massively exhausting will have to suffice. At the end of the title prep cram session, Henry told us he had talked with Madame O and wanted us to report back to her place when we were finished. We just got here, but she's not home yet. The three of us are in my car because there's room. Emma and Nellie are totally out, and I figured I'd write while I have the chance. Things seem to happen so quickly these days, I feel like I'm perpetually playing catch-up. Tap, tap. Nikki looked up from her journal to see Gabby's face at her car window. She glanced at Nellie and Emma, both of whom were still fast asleep. Nikki unlocked her door and got out as quietly as she could. Merry meet, Nikki whispered. I have something for you and Nellie. Gabby handed Nikki 2 envelopes, one with her name on it and the other with Nellie's. Are these for my grandma? Nikki asked, trying to suppress her excitement. They are, Gabby said, but be sure to give Nellie hers soon. The sky rumbled. Looks like it's going to rain. Gabby stared at the sky. I have to go. Blessed be, Nikki. Blessed be, Nikki said, looking at the envelopes. She glanced up, remembering she wanted to ask if Gabby knew when Kate would be back, but Gabby was already gone. Before she could fully process Gabby's disappearance, she caught movement in her peripherals. Ethel waved to her from the front door. Wake the others and come inside, Ethel called. She closed the door. Guys, Nikki said, one knee on the driver's seat and a hand shaking each friend. Wake up, Emma, your grandma's here. 5 more minutes, Emma groaned, her arm covering her face slightly and muffling her voice. I vote 10, Nellie said, curled up in the back seat. I've got a letter for you, Nellie, Nikki said. She felt bad for waking her friends up, but she was also a little jealous that they had been able to fall asleep so quickly. Nikki had tried to nap, but her mind kept racing with all the new Mermaidian information she had picked up. I have a letter for you, Nikki repeated, shaking Nellie's leg. Fine, Nellie said, sticking her hand out to receive said letter. You have to come inside, Nikki said. There was another rumble from the sky. This one was much louder. You guys better hurry up. It's going to start raining. She grabbed her bag, stuffed the letters and her journal inside, and closed the driver's side door. After a deafening rumble, the sky opened its valves and let the rain pour. Nikki hightailed it to Ethel's front door. Couldn't wake them? Ethel called from the kitchen as Nikki came in. No, Nikki said. She put her jacket on the hanger and tossed her bag on the couch in the living room before returning to the dining room to sit down near the head of the table. Training with mermaids is exhausting, she said, collapsing into a chair. Henry called, Ethel said. She came into the dining room carrying a tray loaded with small plates, turkey sandwiches, cucumber slices, and hummus. What did he call you on? His shell phone? Nikki snorted at her own cleverness and took the tray from Ethel, sitting it on the table. Ethel smiled, but did not address the comment. Instead, she said, he said you girls are harder workers than he had anticipated. Ethel returned to the kitchen for a moment. She came back carrying a jug of lavender lemonade and 4 tall glasses. Should I try to wake them up again? Nikki asked, glancing over her back at the window. Even though the heavy drapes were drawn, she knew her friends were probably still asleep in the car. I expect they'll be in soon enough. Eat. Ethel handed Nikki one of the small plates and filled one of the tall glasses with purplish lemonade. She handed the glass to Nikki, who chugged it. That's delicious, she gasped, looking at her empty glass. Thank you. I had no idea how thirsty I was. Nikki put a turkey sandwich with a stack of cucumber slices on her plate while Ethel refilled her glass. What exactly do you know about Henry? Well, Ethel said, pulling up a chair, I know he's... The front door opened. Oh my, it seems the storm has delivered a few wet cats, Ethel said, standing as Nellie and Emma entered, both drenched and actively dripping. You didn't say there'd be food, Nellie said, eyes fixed on the tray. She reached forward. You're soaking. Come with me, you two. Ethel grabbed each girl by an arm, dragging them into the kitchen. Nikki ate in silence for a few moments as Ethel had Nellie and Emma strip off their outermost layers and put on thick bathrobes. She also provided towels for their sopping hair. Nellie and Emma returned to the dining room, their towels holding their wet hair piled high on their heads. Looks like I missed spa day, Nikki teased. Whatever, Nellie said. I'm so hungry I'd eat naked. Nellie stacked a few sandwiches on her plate and poured herself a glass of lemonade. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Emma said, also filling her plate. Nikki was starting to slow down. When you're done eating, Nellie, I have a letter for you. Can't you just tell me? Nellie said through a mouthful of food. Did you have to write a letter? I didn't write it. Nikki scooped up hummus with her last slice of cucumber. It's from my grandma. She back? Nellie asked, swallowing. Who knows, Nikki said, before popping the cucumber slice in her mouth. She cleared her throat and added, Gabby brought it to me. She drained the rest of her lemonade and stood up. I'm going to be in the living room. Come in when you're both done. She took her plate and glass into the kitchen. After washing both, she set them on the rack to dry. Ethel didn't believe in dishwashers. Nikki plopped on the couch and ruffled through her bag, finding the two letters. She set the one addressed to Nellie on the coffee table and opened the other one, muttering as she read, Merry Meet. Nikki, I have entrusted you with this letter to your friend. I assume, if you're reading this, Gabby has delivered both letters to you. Poor Gabby probably feels a bit like a medieval owl delivering mail back and forth. Remind me to teach you the spell to be able to receive letters as well as send them. It's a bit more complicated, but I digress. Now it's imperative you're present as Nellie reads her letter. I won't tell you its entire contents. No, I think it's best left to her to decide what information she wants to share with you and Emma. However, I will tell you it contains information about her family. My little witch, I know it seems like I haven't given you any instruction since I've become your mentor, and I apologize wholeheartedly. But this next bit of instruction is something I need you to follow to the letter. Do not leave her alone. It is important Nelden receives this information, but it is also important she focuses on the task at hand. Your task, your instruction, is to keep her focused. No matter what she wants, be sure to keep her focused. You'll all need to be focused. If it has not happened today, it will happen tomorrow. I'll be back as soon as I can. Blessed be, Grandma Kate. Nikki reread the letter a few times. What did Kate mean by do not leave her alone? Was she supposed to stalk Nellie? Make sure she was never left alone at any moment until whatever was going to happen happened and was over? Nikki glanced at Nellie's letter. An overwhelming desire to rip it open and read it rippled through her. It would have been easier if her grandmother had just told her the information and made her keep it secret. Nikki bounced her leg, thinking about the whole situation for a few moments before deciding Nellie deserved this. Nellie had been the last to find out so many things about her Mermaidian history and heritage. She deserved to find out whatever was in this letter first. Nikki refocused her attention on her own letter, still trying to decipher the full extent of her instructions. So, what was the letter you used as a bargaining chip to get me in here? Nellie asked, flopping onto the love seat near the couch where Nikki was seated. You could have told me there would have been food, and I would have come. I didn't know there was food, Nikki said. It's there. She gestured to the letter on the coffee table. Nellie sat up and grabbed it. And you said this is from Kate, your grandma? She turned the envelope in her hand and ripped it open. Yup. Nikki swallowed and watched Nellie open and reread the letter. Nellie's eyes blazed over the paper. When she had finished reading, she closed her hands over the letter absently, as though she didn't realize it was still there. Staring at the ground, Nellie simultaneously started and stopped movements. She started to move her hand to possibly run her fingers through her hair, but stopped before her hand was even mid-chin. She started to raise her other hand, which still clutched the now crumpled letter, to her mouth, but stopped before she really lifted her hand at all. Nellie wanted to speak, but there were no words she wanted to say. She wanted to scream. She wanted to hide. Nellie felt more in this one moment than she had felt in her entire life. She'd never been a person to feel mixed emotions. Everything was always so clear. When her mother had died, she had been sad. When she surfed, she was happy. Things were simple. They'd always been simple, till she became a mermaid. Can we go back to sleep? Emma asked, joining the girls in the living room. She lay down on the other couch. Nellie finally looked up. What did it say? What's it say? Nikki asked. What are you guys talking about? Emma sat up, looking from one girl to the other. My grandma, Nellie said. My mom's mom. Henry's mom. What about her? Emma pressed. She's alive. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. That is the end of chapter 26. So, if you got to this point and you're like, this doesn't make any sense, I think I missed chapter 1, well, then you should have been paying attention at the beginning of the video because I told you this is chapter 26. But also, like I said, I'll throw a link in there at the description so that if by some chance you made it to this point in the video, sorry, spoiler alerts, but there's a whole playlist, right, that this has been on. I'll see you next week with chapter 27. We should finish, I think, the week before, because we have 27, would be next Friday, because today's the 14th. I'm literally recording this the day of. So then, this is we just started chapter 26, so 27 will be on the 21st, 28 will be on the 28th, 29 will be on December 5th, 30 on December 12th, and 31 on December 19th. And then I'm going to take a little break from the YouTubes because it's Christmas. And my plan, cross your fingers, is to be back for January. But I'll explain more about that on my December 19th video when we finish reading A Change of Tide. Again, you can always get it on Amazon. Search DC Contour and put this in quotations. Otherwise, it will autocorrect this to add a U, and then you'll get makeup. Not my book. A Change of Tide. So, see you next week.